Imagine going to sleep with enough money in the bank to buy a house, only to wake up the next morning to find your entire life savings can't even buy a single loaf of bread. While this sounds like the premise of a dystopian horror movie, for the citizens of Germany in the 1920s, it was an inescapable reality. The root of this economic collapse started at the end of World War I. The victorious nations forced Germany to sign the Treaty of Versailles, a severe agreement that stripped the country of crucial territory and dismantled its military capabilities. On top of losing their industrial land, the newly formed Weimar Republic was burdened with massive financial reparations. They owed a staggeringly high debt to the victorious nations, primarily France and Britain, to pay for the damages of the war. When a broken government owes insurmountable debts and has alienated every country that could potentially loan them money, desperation sets in. With no other options, the German leadership broke a core rule of economics. They started printing money without creating any actual value to back it up. To pay off their international fines, the German government relied on a false fix. They simply fired up the printing presses and flooded the country with brand new German marks. To understand why this destroys a currency's purchasing power, look at this closed economy. We have 4 people sharing a 4-slice pizza, and each person has exactly $100. In this market, the math is straightforward. 1 slice costs exactly $100. But if you double the money, 8 people now have a $100 bill. The pizza size hasn't changed, so the math completely breaks. Because demand has doubled but the supply of food remains static, that same $100 bill only buys you half a slice. More cash entered the system, but zero new value was created. This is inflation. A currency is a paper representation of real-world value. When a government artificially floods the market with paper, they dilute the trust people have that the paper will actually buy them what they need. By 1923, this problem spiraled out of control. Frustrated that Germany was falling behind on its reparation payments, France sent its military to occupy the Ruhr, Germany's most critical industrial and manufacturing region. The Weimar Republic retaliated with a disastrous strategy. They ordered their workers to launch a passive resistance, effectively going on strike, and promised to keep paying their salaries by printing even more millions of German marks. This created an extreme condition known as hyperinflation. At its peak, prices in Germany were rising by 20% every single day. A worker would need a wheelbarrow full of cash just to go down the street and buy basic groceries. The currency became so detached from value that children used banded stacks of official banknotes as toy building blocks. The psychological break was total. Citizens quickly realized that buying firewood was too expensive, making it cheaper to just burn the stacks of cash in their stoves to stay warm. When trust in a currency drops to absolute zero, paper wealth ceases to exist. Almost overnight, an entire industrialized society found itself suddenly reduced to a primitive, daily fight for basic survival. How exactly does a government fix a national economy when its own citizens refuse to believe in the concept of money? The answer came from Germany's finance minister, Hans Luther, and banker Hjalmar Schacht, who devised an entirely new currency, the Rentenmark. Because the country had completely depleted its gold reserves, Luther and Schacht backed the Rentenmark with something else. They tied its value directly to the tangible, physical collateral of Germany's agricultural land and industrial factories. Their next move was a carefully calculated psychological trick. They explicitly set the exchange rate of the new currency at 4.2 Rentenmarks to $1. That specific number wasn't chosen at random. Before World War I began, the exchange rate of the old German mark was exactly 4.2 to the dollar. This provided a traumatized public with an immediate subconscious anchor back to the stability of the pre-war economy. But their most unconventional move relied entirely on reverse psychology. The government explicitly refused to make the Rentenmark legal tender. No citizen or merchant was legally forced to accept it as payment. By removing the coercion and placing a strict hard cap of exactly 3.2 billion printed notes, they weaponized scarcity. Because the supply was tightly limited and entirely optional, people naturally started to want it. By combining tangible asset backing, deep psychological nostalgia, and forced scarcity, the government balanced the ledger and successfully engineered a nationwide psychological reset. This stabilization began what historians call the golden phase, lasting from 1924 to 1929. Supported by the Dawes Plan, which restructured their war reparations, and fueled by massive cash loans from the United States, the new Rentenmark jump-started the German economy. The sheer scale of the turnaround was astounding. By 1928, German international trade actually surpassed its peak output levels from before World War I. Yet, hiding directly beneath this rapid prosperity was a fatal structural flaw. This entire economic miracle was built squarely on a fragile foundation of borrowed foreign capital. When the U.S. stock market crashed in 1929, those American loans vanished instantly. The collapse spread like a financial virus across the Atlantic, cutting off Germany's cash supply and plunging the nation right back into severe poverty. A booming economy fueled strictly by borrowed money offers an illusion of stability. Without internal wealth to fall back on, the nation was left completely defenseless against financial shocks happening oceans away. Over a single decade, the German public endured an unimaginable whiplash. They suffered military humiliation, watched their life savings vaporize into nothing, experienced a miraculous but hollow recovery, and then faced total ruin all over again. This extreme, sustained economic trauma damaged the collective psyche of the working class. It cultivated a society boiling over with deep resentment and a profound, permanent distrust of traditional political institutions. That widespread desperation acted as the perfect tinderbox. It laid the groundwork for a charismatic, extremist leader to step forward and weaponize the public's intense financial grief. The complete destruction of the German economy was the direct catalyst that allowed a radical regime to take power, ultimately plunging the globe into the horrors of the Second World War. Money is, at its core, nothing more than a shared psychological belief. When a nation's leadership mismanages that belief, the resulting bankruptcy creates a desperation so volatile it can break the entire world.